All right, guys. So, former UFC middleweight champion Robert Whittaker delivered a vicious KO of Ikram Aliskerov. And if not for the recent loss to DDP and him being 0-2 against DDP's future opponent, Israel Adesanya, I think we'd all be calling for a title shot in Perth, Australia. That's how you get it done in the main event. You go out there, you deliver, and have the crowd go nuts, and boom, the world is yours, Chico, like they say. Guys, what's your reaction to all this? Dan Tom, why don't you lead off, man? What were you feeling on Saturday afternoon?
I'm feeling all kinds of things after that Scarface reference you just dropped. You know how to speak to my heart, George. But yeah, and you know what Robert Whittaker does too. It's hard to be a quote unquote fan sometimes, even though we definitely admit that we feed that part of ourselves, as healthily as we can. And Robert Whittaker's kind of been that guy for me. I try to stay unbiased when I make these picks, right? But like I was kind of going over it. And for as long as I've been doing it, it's rare for me to never pick against somebody. Like I've even picked against Max Holloway in his second Volk fight, so on and so forth, right? The third one too, I believe. But I've never picked against Robert Whittaker, man. And I think you do pretty well overall if you pick Bobby Knuckles. And he certainly delivered, held the guard, and kind of just showed us almost that older Bobby Knuckles, because you forget that not only has he been facing the most durable guys at middleweight, Robert Whittaker has arguably been facing the most durable guys in the sport. I mean, Marvin Vettori, he's unkillable. I mean, you look at Yoel Romero, and so I think we forgot how dangerous he was, and he reminded us this weekend.
Dan Tom, real quick, I know you like to do your top 5 breakdowns on your show. Have you ever done top 5 uppercuts? Because this one has to be in there, along with Reem. His jaw almost got sent through the roof by Ngannou, and I'm sure there's 3 other great ones out there. But man, this was no joke.
Yeah, that was brutal. That's a great topic idea. Thank you, George. I'm gonna steal that.
All right, cool. Danny Segura, what were you thinking down in Sofla on Saturday afternoon?
Man, just so impressed with Robert Whittaker. This is a guy that's been around for such a long time. And just think about this. He fought Yoel Romero for 25 minutes, and the man's still in one piece out here picking up wins and beating top-notch talent. And we always think like, oh, man, the damage. But like, he's still out here contending for a title. And honestly, I do think he's one of the pound-for-pound best. If you look at the UFC's rankings right now, as far as pound-for-pound, you see guys like Strickland there, Aljamain Sterling, Charles Oliveira, guys without belts. But in my opinion, out of everybody non-champion, this is the best fighter we got right now. Robert Whittaker is an extreme talent. He can do it all. There's a little Twitter breakdown video that's been going around on how he set up that right hand. And man, this guy's just a brilliant fighter. And he just spices up the middleweight division. I'm glad that he's sticking around.
This guy was clinical, surgical. You can run out of words describing what he did, but you could just tell, man, it was experience at a high level. He clipped them. Then he kind of mixed in a head kick. That didn't kind of land, but maybe he got a piece, maybe grazed the head a little bit. Then he waited. He was calm. And think about it, man. Most of us have been in some sort of a fight or some sort of, commotion like that. You're just swinging. You're just reacting. And he stays calm, looks for these openings, and boom, delivers that uppercut. I mean, it was a thing of beauty. What was your reaction to all this?
Oh, man, I jumped out of my chair. That was an amazing shot. That was an amazing performance. Look, we can talk about the lead up. We can talk about short notice. You can bring all those things up, and you wouldn't be wrong to bring them up. But what I saw out there were 2 guys that stood in front of each other, and we saw Robert Whittaker study his opponent and wait for the right opportunity to strike. And he capitalized on it. He took that chance. Robert Whittaker's a gangster, man. Like, honestly, I love what he's doing out there physically. But at the same time, I know a lot of people are going to point and say, look, he's fallen a little short against the elite. And, that did happen. But I feel like physically, he's doing a lot of things better now. And mentally, he seems like he's in a better place than he's been ever in his career. I love the things that he talks about, the things that he says, the way he says it. He just seems so dialed in now that, honestly, going into that fight, you could say, look, this dude's in no man's land. But I feel like these last couple performances have made us look at Robert Whittaker differently.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, guys. So obviously the question is, what's next for Robert Whittaker? Like I laid it out, he did just get iced by the champ DDP a little less than a year ago, and he's 0-2 against Israel Adesanya. He says, I owe Perth, Australia one. Dana White's open to him going out there and being the backup. That's not really paying off the one you owe to Perth, Australia. I don't think they're in unison here. But you know, what is next for him? He's kind of a little handcuffed. We already gave him his flowers, but let's keep it real here. Back to Dan. Tom, what would you do with Robert Whittaker in the next fight? Do you just leave him there as a substitute teacher in case we need you? Do you match him up with someone else? I mean, he's on a high right now.
I think you got options at middleweight. And real quick, I want to shout out Miguel Class. Danny referenced that video, which great shout, Danny. That's going around. And as you guys know, us being a part of MMA Junkie, we've been around the block, and you see all the people stealing work out there. And I'm seeing a lot of people stealing my guy Miguel Class's work. He's an excellent analyst. He created that video. Follow him at Miguel Class. For Robert Whittaker, I want to go with the less sexier option. I think Nasruddin Imavov. It's not one of the matchups that are as sexy. Some people are saying let's rebook Hamzat or maybe a Brendan Allen. I feel like Imavov's a good fight. As far as that goes, I think he wants to step up, and Whittaker would be that. And Imavov still provides a good enough of a name, I believe, to where it can keep Robert Whittaker busy, but still increase his stock to make sure he's next at that next available title shot.
Yeah, because you gotta feel like there's other people there. I don't want to take what any of you might have in mind. Danny, how about you, man? Let's get one more opinion here. What would you do with Robert Whittaker next?
I would like to see him get the next title shot. I do think he's the most deserving guy right now. But if he's got to fight next, if he really wants to get on that card so he can fight in front of his people, man, I suggest the Strickland one. Like right now, there's a debate online. Who deserves it more? Robert Whittaker or Strickland? That seems to be the two horses leading the race right now for the next title shot at 185 pounds. So instead of arguing, how about we just pit them against each other and then finally get an answer to that question? And look, it'll be on the same card where the middleweight title is going to be disputed. So basically, you're just aligning the times perfectly for the next title challenger and the champion. So I'm all for that. I think Whittaker versus Strickland should be on that card. Labeled it as a title eliminator. Plus, from just a fight standpoint, I think it'll be a fantastic fight. Two of the most technical guys at 185 pounds, very, very tricky guys in the striking department. So I'm all in for that title eliminator.
All right, I stand corrected. We're not going to back off. Goes, break the tie. Do you like either the Imavov matchup? Remember, he wants to fight in France. Or do you like Strickland versus Whittaker? That way that solves that. Or do you even have a third name in mind?
Well, I like Strickland and Whittaker. If you're going to call it a title eliminator and you're Dana White, you better start stroking that mustache, because we've heard that before and it doesn't always pan out for fighters, right? So that's the only way you can make that statement and actually have it make sense.
How about this? Don't call it an official title eliminator. That way it does get a title shot, for the win.
That's true. That's probably something else they could do. Look, I think when Dana put that out in the universe that he wants him to be a backup, it's kind of hard to go against the big man, So if you look at it from Robert Whittaker's perspective, there's not much to lose there. You've already prepared for both guys in the past. You know them relatively well. Maybe that might just be your spot. Maybe that's what you do for this one. I mentioned that he was in no man's land, but I did talk last week on SBC and I said, look, as far as Izzy goes, I think he's kind of screwed there. I don't know if anybody wants to see that one again. But DDP, because DDP was so surgical on him, we didn't really want to see that one either. However, I did say, if he comes in and mops the floor this Saturday, that might help us forget a little bit of what happened with DDP. So if DDP were to come out victorious in his fight, I could stomach Robert Whittaker, because I do feel like it's a different guy than the first guy that faced DDP that first time. I feel like he's in a different spot. So I didn't really break a tie. I kind of maybe gave a third option, but I'm not opposed to Sean Strickland. I mean, that's an incredible fight. That's very interesting. I'd love to see that.
All right, great way to start the show. We got another 50 minutes to go. We do this show every Monday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and you can be a part of the show with this chat room that we have. You can come through us through Facebook or through YouTube. Leave a comment, leave a question. Obviously, the better ones we try and give priority to. More on that in just a sec. I just want to read a couple here from Ryan Thibault. He says, love this show. I look forward to it every Monday. Ryan, if you do us a solid and share it, man. Share it with the people that you know that love MMA. That'll help us grow the show. Joseph Boza, he's kind of peeing in Whittaker's Cheerios. He says, Ikram had to basically cut weight twice in 1 week. No offense to Robert Whittaker. He was expected to do that. If he had beaten Hamzat, I think we would be calling for a title shot. I guess maybe a little bit, man, but we would be giving praise to Aliskerov if he had won. So I think it's fair to just say Knuckles did what he did, but I don't think you can take anything away from that. Mark England says, Fear the Reaper, Bobby versus Strickland for a title shot. Chris Goes Wild says, I think Strickland deserves a title shot more than Whittaker does. Michael Panza says Reaper is one of the all-time greats at middleweight. All right, I said I'd have more news on this chat. We are now introducing the super chat feature here on the SBC show, Spinning Back Clique. So if you really want to take priority, like really cut the line, you can handle it that way, and we will obviously give priority to those. Again, the better the comment, the more discussion it'll provide for us. It's your chance to actually pop up on the show. Your name will get shouted out. We'll discuss it. So make them good, and make them quality. And again, thank you all always for tuning in and support. It's because of you guys that we do this show every Monday. So let's keep going, guys. What's next for Volkov? He defeated Pavlovich. So Alexander Volkov defeated Sergei Pavlovich. I guess we can call it an upset. Pavlovich was the favorite according to the bookies, but Volkov, man, he came in there and he really lit up Pavlovich. I mean, Pavlovich's face was crimson red, and apparently these guys had history. You saw some of these face-offs that they had. They were chirping at each other. It seemed like Volkov was put off by the fact that Pavlovich took the fight. I mean, there's not that many heavyweights. Eventually, they all got to dance, so I don't know how I feel about that, but what were your thoughts on this one goes? And then tell me what's next for Alexander Volkov.
Well, look, I thought it was a great performance. He was just beating Sergei to the punch every single time. And now it's 4 straight. 3 of those have been finishes. I think he does need a big name. The problem is it's just so congested at the top, and we really just don't know what can be next for everyone. There's not that many names. A lot of names are tied up. He's already fought Gone. Maybe you could kind of make the argument, hey, how about a rematch? But how many of those have we seen? I would say maybe Jayton Almeida, somebody like that. But boy, do you have to get vocal, because if you look at those last 4 fights and you add a Jayton Almeida on top of that, you need to get on the mic and really make something happen, because it's just clogged up there. And it feels like it's going to take a while to sort all that out. And in the meantime, at heavyweight, having a fairly decent streak like that, you don't want to get lost in the shuffle. But this guy has changed his game up a little bit, and I applaud him for it.
Dan Tom, about a year ago, no, less than a year ago, a lot of us thought Pavlovich would be the successor to Francis Ngannou, or I guess John Jones. And he's lost 2 now. But what about with him, man? Do we really have to rebuild the whole engine? Or is it just a couple of tweaks? Was this a bad matchup for him? What would you do with Sergei Pavlovich next?
This was really troubling, I think, because they were former training partners, and I did pick Volkov. I did pick it to go by decision. Guys, I don't know why this is a surprise. Like, shouldn't we have learned this by the time Rampage and No. By the time Rampage and whatchamacallit, Rashad fought, like, or Rashad and John Jones, anytime we have drama and former training partners, everybody acts like we're going to have the really rare fight, which is like Travis Brown Orlovsky, super rare, both those fighters for that scenario. Yet we act like that is the common thing. Like, well, these guys are going to, drama, heat. Like, no, it equals decisions. It equals overs. Remember that, bettors. Drama, former training partners, smash that over, because they know each other so much. And when you from whether you spar, whether you compete with a former someone you know really well, that's when you get some of your most boring kind of striking matches, right? And not that this was that, but it did kind of tell us a lot. And for Pavlovich, it's like, man, the reason why I picked Volkov is because everybody who's rocked Volkov outside of Tim Johnson has done it by countering his kicks, and that's something that Pavlovich doesn't do, and he didn't do here. And that's really kind of scary, being that like, your main training partner is a guy who is clearly kicking you a lot. You don't want to be too harsh. I'm not expecting to be like some Saenchai, like Muay Thai pass-throughs and elaborate checks, but just step forward and punch, and that was really Sergei's problem in the fight. And that was a real big audit. He was really frustrated. I don't know what's next for him, but I hope a step down. I've been high on Pavlovich before, but this is a guy that I think definitely needs a step down. And for Volkov, I think it makes more sense for him to maybe be a stand-in position with the clogging of the division, heavyweight just being shaky. And the fact that is number one contenders fight, Schmunder one contenders fight, right? Like that doesn't really mean anything anymore. There's really not that many good guys at heavyweight. Let's be honest. Volkov should be the one kind of, sitting back and maybe looking for that, title substitute position that the UFC seems to, only care about middleweights, light heavyweights. and heavyweights, because the rare times we actually get a lightweight headlining and it has to be a pound for pound champion, Islam Makhachev, we somehow only book one other lightweight fight for the entire card, and it was a low level one that of course they buried on the prelims. So it's really funny when they decide to actually like care about, you know, structuring and saving a card, and when they don't. Anyways, no, it's another tangent. Lightweight's getting disrespected. Sorry.
Dan, you got to keep in mind, he did all this with one less cornerman, because one of them dudes was just assigned to combing his hair in between rounds. Like, I've never seen that before. That was legit
part about the fight. Yeah,
yeah, that was some what do you call Roberto, was it Duran? They used to have that done to him, old school.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't even think Val Venus is that you know, like blunt in the middle of a fight, or Nature Boy Ric Flair, or what's his face, the governor, what was his name from Minnesota?
Jesse Ventura. Oh, Jesse Ventura.
He would always address his hair and all that. But Danny, I want to go back to back with you. Just share some quick thoughts on this heavyweight matchup, and then I got another one for you.
Hey, shout out to Dan Tom, because I thought this was going to be a first round knockout by Pavlovich. Volkov is a guy that is fairly slow. Like he's so big that he's not as agile. So I just thought it was a matter of time till he was going to get caught, but was completely shocked to see the way the fight played out. So shouts out to Volkov, because he had a perfect game plan, was very disciplined and stuck by every single part of his game plan. But also, I think I saw a little bit of those shades of Francis Ngannou, post-Stipe Miocic on Sergei Pavlovich. I don't think that it was all entirely on Volkov, and I don't want to take credit away, because he did do a good fight, but I also saw a Pavlovich that was gun shy. I mean, it wasn't until the third round that he started to get going with his punches, and at some points he did land. But anyways, look, at the end of the day, I don't think a lot of people see Volkov as a future champion, but what's right, it's right. The man is on a 4-fight winning streak, which is the longest streak right now actively in the heavyweight division. He needs a big opportunity, whether you think he's going to become champion or not. So I say put him against Cyril Gane, headlining Paris show in September. Why the hell not? I mean, yes, it's a rematch, but like if the results gives you that, you got to go with them.
He's on fire with the matches today, by the way. I agree with him. By the way, he won me over on the Strickland one, for the record, and he won me over on that one. That's a great shout.
I'll take my royalties from the UFC later.
Danny, let's stick with you on Kelvin Gastelum. Man, I wish we didn't have to discuss this. I really like Kelvin Gastelum, former winner of The Ultimate Fighter. He's been in some classics. He's fought at welterweight and middleweight, but he does have a problem making weight. And this one was handled poorly. It all happened so late. You could just tell this threw D-Rod off. I know their fighters are supposed to be ready for everything, but this one just seemed like if you look at the timeline, you know, it didn't look like the cards shook out, you know, in a fair fashion for D-Rod. What were your thoughts on all this?
Man, people that have been following me for a long time in both the English language coverage that I do here with you guys and also in my Spanish language know that I'm extremely high on Kelvin Gastelum's potential, even at this stage of his career. And I'm going to die on that hill until the day he retires. But I can't. It's hard for me as being a Kelvin Gastelum supporter in his potential, what I see in him. It's kind of hard for me to argue people out of kind of being upset with him and frustrated with him, because he is 32 years old. He's been in this game forever. And this same issue has plagued his entire career. Remember, he used to fight at 170 and was basically forced at 185, comes back down to 170. It looks like there's a change in his career, right? He changed gyms from in California from Kings to Fight Ready. He's done a lot of changes. It seems he's a new man. Okay, finally, we're going to get the Kelvin Gastelum at his full potential. Well, no, those issues are back. He didn't make weight by a lot. Well, he technically made weight because he never missed weight. But the fight was entirely moved a different weight class. And then you go and see him fight. He fought great. His boxing looked nice, crisp, and smooth. His head movement was perfect. His chin was there, took some big shots. His wrestling was there, mixed things up beautifully. The guy's a really talented fighter, but he just cannot get his weight under control. And I think a Kelvin Gastelum that can consistently make 170 pounds, if you were just to solve that issue right there, that's a guy that can be in the top 15 easily, probably top 10. He is a quality fighter, and it's just so frustrating to watch his potential be hindered by not properly making weight. And I don't think it's an issue where, oh, this guy's just too big. And there's these fighters that are in betweeners, right? Too small for 185, too big for 170. We saw a little bit of fat on Kelvin, right? Like I think it comes down to some discipline. I mean, by the eye test, D-Rod looked bigger than him. So, man, I just hope for Kelvin Gastelum and the fan base. I do want him to get another opportunity against, again, I fully believe in his potential, but I really hope he gets that figured out because the guy has so much to offer still at this stage of his career for MMA and the UFC.
Yeah, one thing I didn't like was apparently they offered him 180 and he just wouldn't even do that. So, I mean, this wasn't even like, oh, I'm close. Let's negotiate something. I mean, he wasn't even close. And he gave the news late. If you listen to the broadcast, the guys were saying, well, a lot of fighters won't tell you till the very end because they still want to see you suffer. They're always looking for some sort of an advantage. But Gastelum's a G. He's a veteran. He doesn't need to do this. You know, this should have been communicated sooner. I agree with Danny, man. I was watching the fight. I kept thinking at some point he's going to tire out. He did not tire out.
No.
He just kept going.
The dude's good. He's quality fighter, man. Again, it's just a weight problem. If he can get that under control, I think we can see a lot of good fights out of him and even very important wins.
First time out in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. What else did you like goes from this card? UFC on ABC 6. Make it quick.
I liked Felipe Lima. I feel like there's something there that, you know, if they take their time, give him the right matchups, I think he was very entertaining and can be something that we're going to be talking about soon.
Dan, Tom, how about you, man? Anybody catch your eye from that card?
Yeah, shout out to Felipe Lima as well. He was he definitely caught my eye. He was on my prospect article featured, so that thing keeps aging well. We'll talk about that more. And just I just want to say it's always heartbreaking on those things, like especially when it's like D-Rod, this has happened to him before. And, it was another fight that even though I thought Lee won, there was an argument for D-Rod there. There was a more contrarian argument, granted, that for him actually here for rounds 1 and 2. But again, Kelvin seals it in round 3. And you look at kind of D-Rod's age and where they're at. I always feel bad when athletes get these tough beats. And it's at a crucial part of their career, and we saw that with Jared Gordon coming up just short in a fight that he probably should have got the nod on. And another guy who, is already defying the odds by being here at his age, Nicholas Dalby, should have also probably got a win there. But there was just some shifty stuff from commission-related decisions, including veteran people all around on that card. Really weird.
All right. How about you, Danny Segura?
I just want to highlight the fact that Nasrat and Jared Gordon didn't get fight of the night. That was easily the most exciting fight on the entire card by a country mile. And yet somehow it didn't get a bonus. So I just wanted to highlight that, at least in my heart. I know it's not worth $50,000, but in my heart, it was fight of the night.
I'm sure His Excellency could reach into his Ferrari and just pull it out of the little change box and cover the guys. UFC don't want to do it. Show them how it's done, Sheik, because you definitely treat people well out there in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.